Am I the bad guy for refusing to help my ex-wife and for telling my kids the truth about why she left? Hello everyone, my name is Ryan and I will be your narrator for our story today. It was submitted by one of our listeners, and if you haven't followed us already, please click that like, follow and subscribe buttons below. It will surely help our channel a lot and allow us to bring more favorite stories to you. Now, let us begin. I'm Elliot. I'm 44 years old, and my ex-wife is Nicole, who is 40. We were married for 8 years, and before that we dated for 2. Together, we have 2 children, who mean more to me than anything else in this world. For most of our marriage, Nicole liked to joke that she was out of my league. She didn't say it once or twice as a passing comment, it was something she repeated over the years, sometimes laughing, sometimes smiling, and sometimes saying it so casually that it almost sounded like an objective truth. On more than one occasion, she even said it in front of our kids. She would joke that she was the one who settled. That it wasn't the 2 of us choosing each other, it was her choosing me. I always brushed it off. I told myself it was just playful teasing between spouses, the kind of humor couples develop after years together. I convinced myself it meant nothing, that it was harmless, and that I shouldn't be the insecure husband who couldn't take a joke. Sometimes I even laughed along with her. I would turn to my kids and tell them their mom was a goddess that heaven had sent to me, and that I was the luckiest man alive. And the truth is, I meant it. I loved my wife deeply, and I loved my kids with everything I had. I believed in our family completely. I thought love meant patience. I thought loyalty meant endurance. I believed that being a good husband sometimes meant swallowing small hurts to keep the peace. What I didn't realize was how much I was swallowing, and how long I had been doing it. Everything changed one ordinary afternoon in our garage. I was cleaning it out to make space for a small woodworking area. Building chairs and tables in my spare time was something I genuinely enjoyed. It helped me unwind after work, gave me something tangible to focus on, and allowed my mind to quiet down. As I sorted through boxes that had been stored there for years, I came across something unexpected: several of Nicole's old iPhones. These were phones she used back when we were still dating, long before we got married. She must have forgotten about them during our move into our current home after the wedding. Nicole was the type of person who stopped unpacking once she had what she needed. She always said opening old boxes was pointless because she would just have to pack everything again later. So those phones stayed buried in the garage, forgotten, until that day. Out of curiosity, and maybe nostalgia, I charged them and turned them on. I imagined I would find old photos of us when we were younger, messages from when we were falling in love, memories of our first dates and our tiny studio apartment when we decided to move in together. Nicole loved taking photos and recording everything: meals, trips, ordinary moments that felt special at the time. At first, that's exactly what I found. Then I kept scrolling. That's when my entire world cracked open. In group chats with her friends, Nicole admitted things I was never meant to see. She wrote openly that she chose me because I was the safe option, the stable one. She said the reason she stayed with me was because I was a good provider with a promising career. She described my appearance in a way that stung deeply, but then dismissed it by praising my financial security, as if that somehow made everything acceptable. She talked about her previous partners as exciting but unreliable, fun, intense, but not people she could depend on to build a future or raise children. Then the messages became even harder to read. She admitted feeling regret. She talked about how intense those past relationships had been, how much passion there was, and how she still missed that feeling from time to time. She even wrote that she wished she could relive those moments one last time if marriage wasn't already approaching. When she talked about me, the tone was completely different. She described our intimate life as routine, functional, and lacking desire. There were things she admitted she explored in the past, things she refused entirely during our marriage. Every time I tried to reconnect or bring us closer, she told me she simply wasn't that kind of person. She said she preferred things simple and normal. And I believed her. Standing alone in that garage, holding her old phone, I felt something inside me collapse. I realized I wasn't her choice. I was her contingency plan. That night, I went out for a drink, the first one I'd had in weeks. When I came home, I confronted her. Thank God the kids were away at their grandparents' house that weekend. I don't think I could have done it otherwise. I showed her the messages and asked how many people there really had been before me. I asked if she had ever betrayed me while we were together. I told her I loved her and asked how she could do this to me. At first, she broke down. Her face went pale, and she cried while trying to explain herself. She admitted she had been with almost 20 men before we met. She insisted she never crossed a physical line during our marriage, but she also admitted she sometimes revisited the past in her thoughts. Hearing that felt like my entire world detonated. I kept questioning her, overwhelmed and desperate for answers. At one point, I told her I didn't know if I could stay, because it felt like our entire relationship was built on a lie. Then something shifted. Her tears stopped, and her face hardened. It was like watching a mask fall away. She looked at me calmly and asked if I truly believed I ever had a chance with her. She said everything she told her friends was true. That being with someone like her should never have been possible for someone like me without money and stability. She said it slowly and deliberately, like she had rehearsed it many times before. That was when I realized this wasn't new. She had been calculating all along. I stood there frozen, listening, unable to recognize the woman I thought I loved. She told me she was fed up with the life we built, the routines, the responsibilities, the predictability. She wanted excitement, freedom, and a life driven by desire rather than stability. Choosing me, she said, was her mistake. I broke down. A grown man, crying in his own home. She didn't comfort me. That night, she became someone else, or maybe she finally showed me who she truly was. She said me confronting her felt like relief, like a weight had lifted from her shoulders. She told me not to feel bad, that she had been thinking about this since our first child was born, and that she would have told me eventually anyway. Then she dressed up, called her friends, and went out like nothing had happened, leaving me alone. 10 years of loyalty. 10 years of hard work. 10 years of choosing her every single day. She never worked after we married, saying she wanted to stay home with the kids. What she really wanted was comfort, shopping trips, spa weekends, vacations, and luxury. The next morning, I packed my bags and went to my parents' house to be with the kids. She still wasn't home. I filed for divorce not long after. That decision didn't come easily, and it didn't happen in a vacuum. When I told my parents, they reacted very differently. My father listened quietly, his jaw tight, saying very little but making it clear he understood why I had reached this point. My mother, on the other hand, struggled deeply with it. She begged me to reconsider. She kept saying that marriage was about endurance, that families were supposed to stay together, and that children needed both parents under one roof. She wasn't wrong about wanting stability for the kids, but she didn't see what was happening behind closed doors. She didn't see the contempt, the calculation, the way love had already been replaced by resentment long before I ever found those phones. Nicole's father barely reacted at all. He shrugged, said it was unfortunate, and moved on. It was as if the entire collapse of our family barely registered for him. Nicole's mother and her friends, however, reacted very differently. They celebrated. They openly told her she deserved freedom. That she had sacrificed enough. That she was too good for me and always had been. Her mother even said she never understood why Nicole chose me in the first place and that she could have done far better if she hadn't settled. They framed the divorce as an escape, not a loss. While I was trying to hold myself together for my kids, Nicole was already rewriting the story, painting herself as someone who had been trapped, restrained, and denied her true life. According to her and her circle, I wasn't a husband who gave everything. I was an obstacle she finally escaped. The divorce itself was shockingly quick. There were no drawn-out arguments. No screaming matches. No emotional pleas. Nicole didn't even fight for custody. She made it very clear what she wanted, half of everything we owned, and nothing else. That was the condition she gave me if I wanted full custody of our children. I didn't hesitate. My son and daughter mean the world to me. If the price of peace for them was money, I was willing to pay it. We sold the house while the market was strong and split the proceeds evenly. Nicole walked away with a significant amount, more than enough to start over comfortably. I walked away with my children. The first year after the divorce nearly broke me. The nights were the hardest. After the kids fell asleep, the silence would creep in, and my mind would replay everything I had missed, everything I ignored, everything I thought was love. But every morning, when I saw my kids, I found just enough strength to keep going. Slowly, painfully, life began to stabilize. Nicole, meanwhile, lived fast. From what mutual friends told me, she went out constantly. Trips, parties, new faces, new places. She lived as if she were trying to reclaim time itself, as if youth could be stretched indefinitely if she moved fast enough. But time doesn't negotiate. After about 2 years, the money began to run out. Nicole hadn't worked in years. Even before our marriage, her jobs were always short-term or part-time, something to fill space rather than build a future. There was no steady income, no long-term plan, just spending, and then spending more. She believed she would replace me. She believed another provider would appear. Someone taller, more exciting, wealthier. Someone who would take my place without the responsibilities I carried. It didn't happen. As the money dried up, so did the attention. Friends stopped calling. Invitations slowed. The men who once surrounded her disappeared just as quickly as they had arrived. Eventually, she had no choice but to give up her apartment in the city and move back in with her parents, who were already in their 60s. She took a job at a small local accounting firm, a quiet, ordinary job with early mornings, strict schedules, and no admiration attached. For the first time in years, she had to answer to someone. That was when she reached out. At first, it was framed as concern for the kids. She wanted to reconnect after nearly 3 years of absence. I encouraged the kids to give her a chance, even though they were hesitant. No matter how I felt, I still wanted them to grow up emotionally healthy, not carrying bitterness that wasn't theirs to carry. Then she found out I had moved on. She learned, through the kids, that I was dating someone new, a lady from work named Michelle. That knowledge changed everything. The messages became sharper. The tone turned bitter. She started speaking badly about Michelle, questioning her intentions, criticizing her appearance, and implying she was only with me for stability. Soon after that, Nicole tried a different angle. In the beginning, it was subtle. She didn't come to me directly. Instead, she started planting ideas in the kids' heads during phone calls and short visits. She would casually mention how hard things were for her, how unfair life had been lately, how she was just trying to get back on her feet. Then came the suggestion. She asked the kids to ask me for money. She framed it as a loan. She said she wanted to start a small business, something that would finally give her independence. She told them it would only be temporary, that once she was successful, everything would be different. She made it sound reasonable, even noble. But what stood out to me was this: she didn't ask me herself. She used the kids. When they came to me, confused and uncomfortable, repeating her words in their own voices, something inside me tightened. They didn't understand what they were being pulled into. They just knew their mom was struggling and wanted help. I said no. I said it gently, firmly, and without anger. I explained that adult financial matters were not something they should ever be involved in. That their job was to be kids, not messengers. That's when the resentment truly surfaced. Nicole didn't take the refusal quietly. Her tone changed almost overnight. The concern disappeared and was replaced with bitterness. She started accusing me of being selfish. She couldn't understand how I could move forward with my life, how I could rebuild, find stability, even happiness, while refusing to rescue her again. In her mind, I wasn't just saying no to money. I was denying her what she believed she was still owed. That anger didn't stay with her alone for long. Her mother stepped in. And unlike Nicole, she didn't bother pretending. She went straight for the kids. She told them their mother left because I treated her badly. She said Nicole had been unhappy for years and that I ignored her needs. She painted me as cold, controlling, and emotionally absent, a man who abandoned his wife the moment things became inconvenient. She told them I was setting a terrible example. That I was showing them how men discard women once they no longer benefit from them. That I was teaching my son how to abandon responsibility, and my daughter how to accept being mistreated. She said all of this with confidence, with certainty, like it was a version of events she had rehearsed many times before. What hurt the most wasn't just the lies. It was the intent. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She wasn't trying to protect the kids. She was trying to reclaim control, to turn them into leverage, to guilt me into reopening a door that had already closed. That was the moment everything changed. I realized this wasn't going to stop on its own. So I sat my kids down. Not in anger. Not with drama. Not to punish anyone. I spoke slowly. Carefully. I chose my words the way you would choose fragile glass. I told them the truth. I told them why their mother left. I told them what I found. I told them that the divorce wasn't sudden or impulsive, it was the result of years of choices that had nothing to do with them. I didn't insult their mother. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't raise my voice. I simply told them what happened, and why I chose to protect them. I explained that adults are responsible for their own decisions, and that love doesn't mean unlimited sacrifice. I told them that being kind doesn't mean allowing yourself to be used, and that honesty matters, especially when lies are being used to manipulate. I watched their faces as understanding settled in. There were no explosions. No screaming. No dramatic reactions. Just silence. A heavy, thoughtful silence. After that conversation, their behavior changed on its own. They stopped answering certain calls. They grew distant during visits. They began asking different questions, not angry ones, but careful ones. Eventually, they made their own decision. They didn't want to see their mother. They didn't want to see their grandmother. And when Nicole realized she had lost access, not to me, but to the children, her anger turned explosive. She accused me of poisoning them against her. She said I manipulated them. That I turned them into weapons. Her mother screamed at me, called me heartless, vindictive, cruel. She said I destroyed Nicole's life and then destroyed her relationship with her children just to punish her. But the truth was much simpler than that. I didn't turn my kids against anyone. I stopped lying to protect people who were hurting them. And once the truth was out, it spoke for itself. Nicole asked to meet in person not long after. The message wasn't polite. It wasn't careful. It was short, sharp, and written like a demand. We need to talk. This can't be done over the phone. I suggested a cafe near where the kids used to have weekend activities. Neutral ground. Public. No shared history lingering in the walls. She agreed almost immediately. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting stiffly at a corner table with her arms crossed and her jaw set tight. She didn't look desperate. She looked angry, the kind of anger that comes from realizing the world has stopped rearranging itself for you. She didn't greet me. She didn't ask how the kids were. She went straight into it. She told me she was struggling. That the job barely paid enough. That living with her parents was unbearable. That her life had fallen apart faster than she ever imagined. She said it all as if I was supposed to fix it, as if this was still a shared problem we were meant to solve together. Then she said that after everything she gave, after all the years she spent with me, I should help her. That it was only fair. That any decent man would make sure the mother of his children didn't suffer. She didn't call it a loan. She didn't call it temporary. She called it support. Entitlement, dressed up as morality. I listened without interrupting, and as she talked, I noticed what she never mentioned. She didn't ask how the kids were doing. She didn't ask about school routines, weekends, or how she could show up for them more consistently. Only money. When I didn't respond right away, her voice sharpened. She accused me of enjoying this, of watching her struggle while I played the calm, stable parent. She said I was punishing her for being honest. That I was cruel for refusing to help when I clearly could. Then she said the word that explained everything. She said I owed her. She said she gave me her youth, her time, her life, and now I was abandoning her when she needed me most. That was when I finally spoke. I told her the divorce was settled. I told her the house was sold, that we split everything evenly, and that I paid exactly what was agreed. I reminded her that I was raising our children alone, full-time. And I told her, clearly, calmly, that her life after the divorce was no longer my responsibility. Her face hardened immediately. She leaned forward and told me that if I had been a better husband, she never would have left. That my boring life suffocated her. That she wouldn't be in this position if I hadn't forced her to choose between passion and stability. She said I ruined her life. Then she brought up Michelle. She mocked her, questioned her motives, and said she was probably using me the same way Nicole once did, because, in her words, men like me were always just wallets in the end. That was when I stood up. Not angry. Not loud. Just finished. I told her to stop. I told her she didn't get to insult my life anymore. She didn't get to rewrite history, and she didn't get to blame me for choices she made with open eyes. She laughed bitterly and asked if I really thought I was better than her now. I told her the truth. I wasn't better than her. I was done with her. I told her there would be no money. No loans. No support. Not now. Not ever. I told her that any future communication would be in writing and only about the children. Nothing else. And I told her to stop involving the kids immediately. Then I said the thing that finally ended it. I told her I didn't forgive her. I didn't say it with anger. I said it like a fact. I told her forgiveness was for people who showed remorse, who took responsibility, and who didn't keep trying to extract after everything was over. I told her I wasn't carrying her guilt, her anger, or her consequences anymore. She went silent. Not shocked. Cornered. She looked around the cafe like she might find another angle, another pressure point, but there wasn't one left. When she asked quietly if this was really it, I nodded, stood up, and walked away. That night, her mother called. I recognized the number immediately and almost didn't answer, but something told me this wouldn't stop unless I ended it properly. The moment I picked up, she started screaming. Not crying. Not pleading. Screaming. She accused me of abandoning Nicole, of throwing her away after using her up. She said I was cruel, heartless, and selfish for refusing to help the mother of my children when she was clearly struggling. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't ask why. She spoke as if the verdict had already been reached and I was simply there to be punished. She told me a real man would never let the mother of his children suffer. That no matter what happened between us, my responsibility didn't end with the divorce. In her mind, money was something I owed Nicole for life. She said I took her daughter's best years. Not that we grew together. Not that we built a life. Took. She said Nicole gave me her youth, her body, her time, and now I was discarding her because she was no longer convenient. She said I was punishing Nicole for being honest about what she wanted in life. Then she went further. She said Nicole never should have worked. Never should have struggled. Never should have lived an ordinary life. She said her daughter was meant to be taken care of. That's when I understood this wasn't about love, fairness, or even Nicole's happiness. This was about access. She accused me of enjoying my life while her daughter worked as nobody job. She said it was disgusting that I could afford stability while Nicole had to wake up early, answer to a boss, and budget her spending. She called that abuse. Financial abuse. She said I was setting a terrible example for my children, teaching my son how to abandon women and my daughter how men leave once women age or become inconvenient. I reminded her, calmly, that Nicole walked away from the kids. That she didn't fight for custody. That she chose money over parenting. She ignored all of it. Facts didn't matter. Only entitlement did. Her voice sharpened as she admitted what this was really about. She said she and Nicole were counting on me. That families take care of each other. That I had no right to cut Nicole off while I was still doing well. Then the truth slipped out. You have more than enough, she said. Why should my daughter suffer when you're comfortable? And suddenly, everything made sense. Nicole wasn't just their daughter. She was their plan. Their expectation. Their safety net. And when her money ran out, when her lifestyle collapsed, they turned to me as the replacement. I told her no. One word. No explanation. No argument. She exploded, threatening to tell everyone what kind of man I was and promising I'd regret this when I was old and alone. I let her finish, then told her I wasn't responsible for Nicole's choices, her lifestyle, or her parents' expectations. I told her the divorce ended my financial obligation completely, and that if she ever involved my children in adult lies again, all communication would go through lawyers. She went quiet, not calm, but stunned. I didn't wait for her to recover. I told her I was done paying for other people's choices. Then I hung up. I blocked the number. That was the last conversation I ever had with either of them. Standing alone in my kitchen afterward, something unexpected happened. My chest felt light. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel guilty. I felt finished. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is finally quiet and the kids are asleep, I think about how close I came to losing myself completely. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just slowly. I think about the version of me who would have answered that call one more time. Who would have written one more check. Who would have apologized for things that were never his fault just to keep the peace a little longer. That man feels like a stranger now. Nicole still reaches out from time to time. Not directly. Through distant relatives. Old mutual friends. Once, even through an email that said nothing except, "I hope you're well." I don't reply. I don't need to. My children laugh freely now. They sleep through the night. They no longer flinch when the phone rings. The tension that once lived in our home has faded into something calm, something steady. And every once in a while, when I pass a cafe or see a familiar name flash briefly on my screen, I feel a flicker of something that might have been guilt. But it never lasts. Because peace, I've learned, doesn't come from forgiveness. Sometimes, it comes from finally walking away and never looking back. And that's a wrap for us today, everyone. What a bittersweet tale this was. Poor Elliot. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe for more. This is Ryan checking out. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.